Locker 19 at Union Station. Opened after 35 years on the morning of March 15, 2024. A team of forensic investigators and transit police officers gathered in a basement corridor of Washington Union Station, one of the busiest transportation hubs on the American Eastern Seaboard. They were there to open Locker 19, a storage unit that had remained sealed since September 1989, 34 years, 6 months, and 26 days. The combination had never been recovered. The key had never been found. And for more than 3 decades, the question of what lay inside had lingered at the edges of the city's collective memory, a mystery that authorities had quietly classified as unsolvable. That morning, they intended to finally know. The locker itself was unremarkable, a standard metal compartment, approximately 3 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, identical to the dozens that lined the walls of the station's lower-level baggage area. Its number, 19, had been painted in black stencil on a faded orange door. The lock was a simple rotary dial mechanism, the kind that required a 3-number combination. In 1989, there had been 200 such lockers available for rent at Union Station, each costing $2 per day. They were used by travelers, by commuters, by people who needed a place to stash a suitcase for a few hours while they navigated the city. Most were emptied within days. Locker 19 had not been emptied in nearly 35 years. The story begins, as so many stories do, with a routine matter gone unexplained. On the morning of September 3, 1989, a Sunday, a station employee named Robert Hale was conducting his weekly inspection of the storage lockers. His task was straightforward. Check each locker, note those whose rental period had expired, report them for fast opening. Most had been rented briefly and returned empty. But when Hale reached Locker 19, he noticed something unusual. The combination dial had been left at 000, a position that suggested the locker had never been properly secured. He pulled the handle. The door opened. And there, partially visible beneath a gray wool blanket, were human remains. The discovery sent shockwaves through the station. Union Station in 1989 was a different institution than it is today, still recovering from decades of neglect, still haunted by its own grandeur and decline. On that September morning, the weather was unseasonably warm, 78 degrees and humid, the kind of late summer day that makes the stone corridors feel stale. Transit police cordoned off the area. The FBI was called. The locker was photographed, documented, and sealed again pending the arrival of a forensic team. What lay inside would not be fully examined for another 35 years. The victim, as investigators would later determine, was a woman. She had been deceased for several weeks, possibly longer. The decomposition was advanced. Her identity was not immediately known. She carried no wallet, no purse, no identification. Her clothing, a navy blue cardigan, khaki trousers, white leather sneakers, offered no immediate clues. She wore a wedding ring on her left hand. That detail, seemingly small, would become central to the investigation. In the weeks that followed, detectives pursued every lead. They interviewed station employees, locker rental attendants, ticket agents. They distributed flyers to local hospitals and missing persons offices. They checked the locker rental records, but the system in 1989 was rudimentary, a carbon copy receipt with a name and a payment method, easily forged or discarded. The only information on file was a name, J. Morris. It could have been a real name. It could have been a pseudonym. Detectives never determined which. The investigation stalled within months. In 1989, DNA technology was in its infancy. Facial reconstruction was crude. The National Missing Persons database was incomplete. And the victim, whoever she was, had left almost nothing behind. There were no fingerprints on the interior of the locker. No fibers, no hairs, no trace evidence of any kind. It was as though she had been placed inside with gloved hands by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The case was classified as a homicide. The cause of death determined to be blunt force trauma to the head, but without a suspect, without a name. Without a motive, it quietly passed from active investigation to cold case archive. For decades, locker 19 remained sealed. The combination was lost. The key was never found. And the woman who died inside it became, in the eyes of the law, a ghost. She had a name, of course. Somewhere she had a life. But here, in this station, she was simply body number 89-0147, a file in a drawer, a puzzle with no edges. The revival of the case came not from a breakthrough in the original investigation, but from a bureaucratic decision. In 2023, Union Station underwent a major renovation of its lower levels, part of a broader effort to modernize the facility's infrastructure. The storage locker area was slated for demolition. Before the lockers could be removed, transit authorities decided they needed to address the outstanding legal issues. The locker would be opened. The remains would be examined one final time. And perhaps, after all these years, the woman would be identified. The forensic team that gathered on that March morning in 2024 included specialists from the FBI's VI-CAP unit, the District of Columbia's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and a private DNA laboratory contracted by the Transit Authority. Their protocol was meticulous. The locker was photographed in its sealed state. The door was carefully hinged open. And inside, exactly as Robert Hale had found it in 1989, they discovered the remains wrapped in a gray wool blanket, along with a small leather handbag, a paperback novel, and a one-way bus ticket to New York City. The handbag was the first breakthrough. It was a modest item, brown leather with a brass buckle. Inside, investigators found a compact mirror, a tube of lipstick in a shade called mauve mist, and a folded piece of paper, a receipt from a clothing store in Alexandria, Virginia, dated August 29, 1989, 5 days before her death. The receipt listed 2 items, a navy blue cardigan and khaki trousers, the clothing she was wearing when she died. Using the receipt, detectives were able to trace the store, interview employees, and obtain security footage from that week. The footage was grainy, black and white, but it showed a woman matching the victim's description purchasing the cardigan and trousers. She paid in cash. She did not speak to the clock beyond the necessary transaction. She left the store and entered a gray Ford sedan parked on the street. The license plate was visible. The car was registered to a man named Thomas Whitmore, a 43-year-old electrician living in Silver Spring, Maryland. When investigators ran Thomas Whitmore's name through current databases, they found he had died in 2001 in a house fire in Delaware. His criminal history was clean. His marriage records showed he had been married twice, the second time to a woman named Linda, whom he had divorced in 1987. There was nothing to suggest a connection to the woman in locker 19. And yet the car, the gray Ford sedan, had been seen on the station's security footage on September 1, 1989, 2 days before the body was discovered. A man matching Thomas Whitmore's description was observed removing a large suitcase from the trunk and carrying it toward the locker area. The evidence was circumstantial. Thomas Whitmore was never charged with any crime. He could not be questioned. He could not be cleared. The case, despite everything, remained open, but the most haunting discovery came from the DNA analysis. In 1989, the victim could not be identified. In 2024, genetic genealogy made it possible to trace her lineage. She was not Jay Morris. She was not a transient, not a woman without a home. Her name was Caroline Price. She was 31 years old in 1989. She had been born in Richmond, Virginia. She had a mother, a father, a younger brother. She had worked as a paralegal at a law firm in downtown Washington. She had been reported missing in October 1989 by her family after she failed to return from what she described as a short trip to visit a friend. Her family had never known what happened to her. For 35 years, they had lived with the uncertainty, the unanswered questions, the terrible silence of a disappearance. In March 2024, they were notified. Her mother, now 87 years old, requested to see the contents of the locker. She was shown the handbag, the lipstick, the receipt from Alexandria. She was told about the wedding ring. She was told about the gray Ford sedan. Then she said something that left the investigators uneasy. She wasn't married, she said. Caroline wasn't married. She was engaged. Her engagement ring was on a chain around her neck. She never took it off. The ring found on the body was a simple gold band, sized for a woman's ring finger. It had no engraving. It matched no description of Caroline Price's engagement ring, which her mother described as a diamond solitaire in a white gold setting. The band in the locker was not hers.